Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Unintended Receiver brought to you by 91 Ultimate. Today we're going to be talking to you about the Ultimate community. But before we get into that, we have some quick updates on what's going on around India and abroad in terms of Ultimate Frisbee. Jaidip and Richa, my co-hosts for today, say hi everyone.
Hello.
Hi everyone. Hi.
Hi, they're going to be taking you through the updates. Jaideep, over to you.
Yep. So a lot of things have been happening since the last episode came out. So we thought we'd do a quick roundup. One of the major things was the documentary by Varsha was released, officially public. This is a documentary about the World Under 23 India mixed team, which was the first ever fully funded and selected national team. So every player earned their spot on the team purely through skill and merit. And it's all about their story. It's called The Strength of the Pack. It was officially launched on International Women's Day 2021, March 8th, and in partnership with the Indian Embassy Students Hub. So that was really exciting because some of us had seen this. It had been kind of privately screened at a Bangalore Ultimate Open tournament, but it wasn't made public. And so like a lot of people were looking forward to it, seeing it, because it's all about this story and really inspirational, a lot of great learnings. And the Indian Ultimate community, of course, we know a lot of those players. We've seen them play and coach, and it's really great to see, what influence to make them who they are today. So a lot of that story is covered in that documentary. It's really interesting and exciting. Go check it out. It's on the One All website, the non-profit organization based out of Chennai and Gudalur. That's One All, one as in the word one, ONE hyphen all, ALL.in/media. So you'll see it on their website. So that's one big thing. And then a lot of events have been planned, scheduled, and one major one just happened last weekend. So on the 13th of March, 13th and 14th, we had the Auroville Invitational, where I think there were 14 teams that attended. A few Bangalore, Chennai, and Auroville-based teams went. This is really exciting for players and the community because it was the first big event since the pandemic. And so that happened last weekend. It was won by Airborne in a tightly fought final between Airborne and Stall 7. So that was pretty cool. We have some cool things happening in communities. So in Chennai, they've got a few events coming up. On the 27th and 28th of March, there's the Chennai Hat Tournament. This happened before. It's in partnership with TNFDA, Tamil Nadu Flying Disc Association, and Puyal, the club team. And it's always on the beach. It's always a lot of fun. I think it's a 4v4 format. And you have to wear lungis. So it's, it's like this big focus on just like atmosphere of spirited ultimate. It's all about having fun, inclusive. So it's a 2-day beach tournament. On that same weekend, there's Agni 5-on-5. This dates back to events that used to happen in Chennai, hosted by Chennai Ultimate Frisbee CUF. Agni Nakshatra, which is an annual event focused on beginners. So this is, again, it's a beach. No, actually, I think this is going to be on turf.
Turf,
It's
yeah.
only for, and it's only for players who have 1 season or less experienced. So really focusing on beginners. And as a follow-up to that, on the 10th and 11th of April, there is a tournament for intermediate players. So those players who have 2 seasons or less experience, which is called Level Up. Also happening in Chennai on turf again. Is that right, Richa?
Yeah.
Yeah, on 10th, 11th of April. That's 3 events there just happening in Chennai. A lot of that effort going in from TNFDA, so that's great to see. There's also something called DSL happening in Delhi, the Delhi Sunday League, which is 3 consecutive Sundays in March. Players sign up and play as mixed teams, get to play with players from different clubs in Delhi, the Delhi region. That's awesome. And also a big tournament coming up in Bangalore, which is called the 1.5 Ultimate Open 2021, 17th and 18th of April. The dates got shifted for a particular, it was to basically make sure that ATC could come. But yeah, that's 17th, 18th of April. there. And finally, I think we have Mumbai Ultimate League coming up. So it hasn't started yet, but it's going to be happening soon. Is that right, Richa?
Yep, it's players and everyone's asked to sign up, and auctions and drafts are going to come out soon, and hopefully in May it's going to start.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And so this is really exciting for the Indian Ultimate community coming out of the pandemic. There are still COVID restrictions and guidelines in place. So just, I think yesterday, the COVID new guidelines were released by the UPAI. So do check them out. They're definitely going to have an impact on what events can actually take place. The fact that we have to monitor the number of new cases, they're starting to go up a little bit. So we have to keep track of that. Might not be possible for all events. And it will probably have an impact on the start of the NCS, the National Championship Series, which is the official set of tournaments conducted by the UPAI. So do have a look online on the website to learn more about whether events might be happening and what's causing them to be cancelled or not. So that's
Yep.
everything domestically.
Yes, and internationally as well, there are a couple of events that have been announced, which sound very exciting. So the first is Paganello has been announced. In It's played on beach. It's on October 2 and 2nd and 3rd. Think that'd be really fun. Europe Club Beach Championships have also been announced. They're going to happen in Portugal on September 7th and 9th, 17th to 19th. And obviously, USA had a big announcement that they're kicking off most of their championships. So they've announced that the youth championships will be on the calendar this year. There will be a Pro Elite League Club Championship. The AUDL is kicking off on June 5th, and USA Youth it will kick off in July with the Pro Elite Challenge. And yeah, and also in Europe there will be a tournament championship for masters. So yeah, it seems like even internationally there are a few events being planned and being like they're picking up, although USA has said and put a cautionary disclaimer that similar to NCS, that depending on the number of cases and how COVID is spreading or not spreading, they will also either shift or delay dates. Uh, but it seems like the vaccination programs are going strong in different places, and
Yeah.
it may still go ahead as planned.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Thanks, guys, for all the news updates so that we know things that are going on. And we'll move on to our episode. So today we're going to be talking about something quite exciting. Talking about the ultimate community in India and the people who make it. Who are these people? Where do they come from? How did they come to start playing ultimate? And essentially decoding this giant entity that ultimate in players in India have become. To start with, I read somewhere that ultimate first started in 1998 in India, and then someone told me it was Ahmedabad, and elsewhere I heard it was Chennai. And well, since there's only one dinosaur here amongst the three of us, Jaidip, and in my head it's like you've existed ever since ultimate has existed. Could you please shed some light on the truth of the matter?
Since,
Yeah, break the mystery.
Break the mystery.
since Ultimate has existed, I don't know if that's a bit of a push. Yeah, I like to think I was here at initial stages, and it's been awesome to see the trajectory and evolution of Ultimate in India. And I think the crux of this is also to understand how and how this happened and why it started then, and what does it look like today. Like when new teams come up, like how does that happen? Like what is it that drives uh players or like new people to start playing Ultimate? It's very different today than it was 10 15 years ago. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think in 1998 it was that the international school in Kodaikanal International School, KISS, started playing on campus on their grounds through one of their teachers called Brian Plymall. So he is kind of credited with being one of the godfathers of Indian Ultimate, starting it there, because he also went on to conduct one of the best tournaments and most memorable tournaments, Kodaikanal Fly Baba. But in many cases, like what way it happened was playing in these kind of like bubbles, and so like not many people heard about it outside of that. It was really efforts made from teams in Delhi, Chennai, and Ahmedabad, where they connected with each other and started inviting each other to each other's home cities to play tournaments. So I think these three cities, within 1 year of each other, kind of started playing. In Ahmedabad, it was IndyCore and their program Ahmedabad Ultimate, starting off a youth league to use Ultimate as a tool for social change with the youth in Ahmedabad. In Chennai, it was largely driven by Mano Karan, who I think everybody still remembers and knows, still playing with Callahans in Chennai. He had studied abroad. He'd studied in the USA and then come back to India and did his MBA at ISB and made good friends with a guy called Narayanan Krishnan, who we also know as Mama. And so then the two of them, plus a couple of other close friends like Karthik Mandabalam, also known as Thunder, and Abhinav Shankar, also known as Cow. The kind of four of them spearheaded CUF, Chennai Ultimate Frisbee, getting Ultimate popular in Chennai.
And
then
Jaidip, around when was all this happening?
Oh yeah. So this was around 2006 to 2008, so around that time.
Yeah. So interestingly, Ahmedabad, actually, I spoke to Dushyant, and when I spoke to him, he was like, Jadeep, and him were the primary partners in Indicore, and kind of tried to do not tried, but did the whole program, the school program and everything. And he was saying that, I mean, mostly from Ahmedabad, now the team that is known well for their skills and their athletic and top playing ability is Dreamcatchers. But actually, Abhay Ghat was the first team that came out of Ahmedabad, and IIM Ahmedabad is actually where they uh, it, they started playing first. He was saying, and also Ahmedabad is the place where the first ever ultimate tournament happened. While it happened only within the teams in Ahmedabad in 2006, it was Ahmedabad Ultimate Open. But yeah, the scale, I think he mentioned that there were like a lot of teams and lots of players, like in double digit teams existed, and they were all like kids of within the age group of 8 and 9 and 14 to 15. So it was quite an interesting trip down memory lane for him and me to discover that Ahmedabad had like a very thriving scene back in 2009 when it started. 2006,
Right.
2000. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So the other place we didn't talk about too much, so in Delhi, it was one of the still famous teams that Mehr plays for, and I used to play with. Stray Dogs in Sweaters actually started out of the American Embassy School, hence the kind of quirky name as well. And they used to play on campus, then they shifted to Nehru Park, and then a lot more of like Delhiites started playing. And now it's predominantly Delhiites who kind of run the team. So that's and they started around that time as well, 2007, 2008, and so they came together.
I found a really funny description on the SDIS page. I'd never read it before. It said, founded under the smoggy skies of Delhi among the necking couples at Nehru Park.
Sounds
Necking
about right.
couples.
Not only that, they also have an exact date of founding, February 9th, 2008. I don't know what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
What happened on that day? Yeah,
Yeah.
the necking couple sounds about right. Yeah, explains why it became popular in Lodi Garden also.
Oh yeah. And also, by the way, apparently Dreamcatchers is what Jaideep, you named the team, which was inspired by Dreamcatchers quite literally in the US. So Mehr, really Jaideep cannot put titles like he just takes a fact and then makes it a title. For like the team Dreamcatchers, they were like they still don't like the name, or thought it was cool back then, but yeah.
Then they
Just
grew out
name.
of it.
Yeah.
They
I was
need
quite
to.
proud of that name.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I was just recently, I was talking about names, and Deepak from Hawabaz was telling me very happily that he named the team Hawabaz, and the other options were Drunken Monkey, or
Oh,
some chemistry name that the Stephens kids wanted to give it. So other fun things.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think even Nash has a very funny story behind the name, the way Nash came about. Which is, it's named after a player called Nash, but
Nash, yeah.
yeah. So apparently, Mel was telling me that actually, the team was not happy with the name, and they still kind of give her grief for naming the team Nash. But it was more so her idea was more about, like, the gritting of the teeth, the gnashing of the teeth, and like being fierce and all of that. Uh, they tried to justify it with that, but yeah, that also has happened.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how these team names come about and what sticks and whether teams try to change them or not.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about Bangalore. Bangalore came around the same time. I want to say a little bit later. I'm not sure, maybe 1 year or a few months. Again, like it's also hard to track completely because some of these communities were just throwing a disc around. They weren't technically playing Ultimate, or they were playing some other version.
Yeah.
The founding teams in Bangalore Ultimate was DOD, Disco Divani, and L2F, Learning to Fly.
Disco Devani, that is so cute.
You
Jaideep,
didn't know that's what DOD
no,
stands
I
for?
know, but it's Disco Devane, not Divani.
Divani. All right. Sorry, Divani. I've
Use this.
already given my disclaimer about pronunciations on this podcast. DOD. I think they're the older team. Started out by players like Rambo and Venki and Sim, and they're like that's quite interesting because Bangalore is kind of an outdoorsy population, and so they were a lot of them were climbers, do a lot of bouldering and climbing, rock climbing, and so they heard about Ultimate and they just started playing it. They used to use it as like a cardio exercise, but of course it became one of the best teams in the country, winning nationals a few years ago. So, and the same with L2, not the same with L2F, but it was like some young professionals who had heard about it. And I think one or two of them had seen or heard the sport because they traveled to the US. So this is about Bangalore.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's so interesting, like how, like you spoke about how who brought the sport to Chennai, or like who introduced it in Ahmedabad, and you often find that it's in a lot of these communities, it's an individual who has gone and like taken the effort to like constitute a team and bring people together, and very individual driven kind of communities have developed in various places. And like I was thinking about Udaipur in Rajasthan, and Flying Foxes, the team then, like Manish Kataria, or Manish Freeman, like he likes to be called, he wanted to play Ultimate in Udaipur, and there was no team. And he also had like a limited kind of background in Ultimate. He was introduced to it, but he wanted to play. So he went
Yeah.
to Ahmedabad, Pune, Hyderabad, and he like trained with various teams over there. People hosted him. He was like a backpacker for a while. And then he came back, brought people together, and they were through schools and NGOs facilitating workshops, and through his like network now there's a full-fledged team that's existing in Rajasthan.
Udaipur. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think similar. So in the West, actually, it's interesting that Pune, Ahmedabad, and Surat actually came. The ultimate communities were born out of all of these sport for development programs. Like Teach for India fellows would go to Pune and teach the kids in schools over there. Similarly, with Ahmedabad, Indico had a really strong program where they were, using the sport, like Jaideep said, for bridging the community and helping the community kind of, get exposure to the sport. And even in Surat, actually, so Vardhan, while he went and played in AUO, I think he went back and tried. So it officially, in the first 2 years when he took it back, it was only the staff of the Fountainhead School that were playing. But actually, the growth came out of this NGO that was named Jumbish, that took the sport to schools, different schools, and they started the program at different schools. And then slowly, Vardhan, Hardik kind of tried to get players in the school of Fountainhead also make a team. So yeah, I think that West has had a lot of influence of non-profits, using the sport. Even in Bombay, down to earth, there's a team that they don't travel extensively for tournaments outside of Bombay or outside of the West, but they have a strong program even in Bombay. So in Bombay, actually, there was Storm Chasers, and then there was Down to Earth, the non-profit that was running the program. And yeah, and then Storm kind of is also very individual, like similar to what you were talking about, Manish. Like there's this player called Sanar. He found out about the sport online, and he was like just talking to friends, started getting friends of friends to play. He really wanted to play the sport, and so he started the team, and then then moved around, traveled around actually outside, and then the team was kind of helped and built up by two expats who were traveling and helped coach and train the team as well. Yeah,
Mm.
and Goa also actually interestingly, so Goa started on grass. They used to play in a park in Goa, not on the beach, for a very
Ah.
long time. Yeah, exactly. I was very surprised. Yeah, so I was very surprised when I heard this. I was like, what? So apparently, Jonah, the resident radio jockey, and the pun master, he and a few other players in the team, Chirag, etc., who knew each other, started throwing a disc around in the park. And
Mm.
one day, Mel was actually chasing after a kid who had stolen a tennis ball from the tennis coaching program, and she was running after him. And she almost because of the chase, that kid almost bumped into a car. So then she stopped, and from the corner of the eye, she saw like this flying disc, and Pat, who had been playing Ultimate, and found out these players were there. And then what she slowly started doing was that started getting people from the tennis courts onto Ultimate Field. So recruitment had to like go to like tennis courts and like badminton courts and get people to come play. But that's how actually Goa started. And I mean, and I think Goa, they poured a lot of their energy into hosting some of the top level talent by doing Goa Hat or All Star Games. I mean, All Star Game actually started. They Goa has hosted for 4 years,
Yeah.
and the Goa Sixes also, which is hosted with a lot of talent, and that was the tournament that had the. I think it's the first tournament that gives out cash money for
Prize money.
winning.
Yeah.
Yeah, prize
Yep.
money. Um, and also has a sixes format. But yeah, so Goa actually poured a lot of energy into bringing a lot of talent, top talent to compete. And
Mm.
unfortunately, now a lot of the younger players on the team are going away. So this year there is going to be no Nash competing at NCS. They're all going to kind of disintegrate and go into other teams in the West, mainly to Jumbish. So Jumbish is going to be quite difficult to beat this year.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, that's it. Seems like even in the West there is this theme of individuals kind of driving growth and starting
Yeah.
ultimate community.
So many of these stories, like you said, Richa, like they start with, throwing a disc around in a park, like two people coming and spending an
Yeah.
afternoon, and then a couple of people watching and saying, "What are you doing?" And
Yeah.
um, like even GK Mad, I mean, it wasn't born. Interestingly, wasn't born as a non-profit organization. It was born out of kids playing in a park, watching someone play, and then like later got formalized into Y Ultimate
Yeah.
to sort of get funding in and get make it more sustainable. But just it's just lovely how communities just come together and throw, there's joy in just that. And that's
Yeah,
the biggest recruitment strategy, is to like play and show everyone how much fun you're having.
fine. Yeah. and and I mean that's also true, but I think that one community that really surprises me is the community in Kerala. They have they keep throwing, and they seem to be having a lot of fun, but I rarely see them in tournaments. And
Yeah.
Mm.
they're in fact they if I just checked, and like they had a hat tournament in January within amongst themselves.
Wow,
um, yeah.
so
So they
cute.
actually, yeah. So they do a lot of ultimate within their community. I'm very surprised why. they don't come outside and mingle, and it's a question that I still haven't gotten an answer to. But yeah, they're also a community that exists, and I know very little in terms of who started it and when it started, but it also is a very individual driven community.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, the non-competitive ultimate community is a whole new, different community that a lot of us just don't know about because we don't see them
Yeah.
in. Yeah, and like even when I was at Ashoka, a lot of the fellows in my batch played, and
Mm.
they still play. They still find the time to like meet and play, and they're not interested in participating in any tournament. They just love each other and the game, and it's amazing. It's yeah. And there's so many of these hidden communities. Like recently somebody said on the Delhi group that there's a community that has been playing in Lodi since 10 years, and
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, and Sohani said, what, how did I not know about this? And I thought I knew every ultimate person. And they were
Suhani did know about it. What's Suhani talking about? We all knew
no,
about it. It's just like it was his
no.
own community. It's where Manik comes from. Manik is from that community.
Oh, well, Sohani invited them to our practice, and they said, why don't
Yeah.
you join our practice?
Yeah, well, it's a good point. Stray Dogs used to have sessions there. Used to have sessions in Lodi Garden, so it's a great place to play like a 5-on-5 with the necking couples.
With the necking couple. My favorite. My favorite
So,
kind of turf.
Um,
by the way, even in Goa, I recently found out that there is a community that plays in on Bagator Beach, and they like try and have their own thing. So yeah, even I was surprised that there was, and they also play for fun. They don't
mm,
really
yeah.
compete in.
Play for fun.
Yeah.
As opposed to playing not for fun.
So yeah, yeah. I mean, just
Non-competitive.
say non-competitive. Yeah, non-competitive. For me, it's either you play for fun or you play for competitive reasons. But yeah, this is fun. But yeah, and I want to like little bit talk about uh, especially. I mean, when I was talking to Sunil from Pune, and something interesting came up with in conversation with him was that they're a community that is, so they had the Teach for India fellows that came in and helped set up the community, but they actually struggled a little bit, not little, a lot, to grow the community because it was a purely young student driven community. So when they went to colleges and they were like, we want to start this program, etc., they were not taken seriously. And only when like Athir,
Mm,
he's a player from Chennai, and when he would go to schools, where is when they took it seriously. And so, I mean, I found it interesting that you need to have an intervention of almost somebody like who looks and seems older and serious. And so, what all can UPI do if they go into communities or try to find ways to send people, or if there's an organized effort in some way to helping communities which are otherwise like smaller, and how they can grow.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And like Jaideep, maybe a lot ultimate is emerging in a lot of colleges across the country.
Yeah.
Um, and do you want to tell us a little bit about where
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
what all? Yeah.
Yeah, that's also cool. And you guys had already mentioned, I think Richard mentioned about IIM Ahmedabad, probably one of the not just oldest colleges to start playing Ultimate, but generally like oldest communities playing Ultimate. They were
Yeah.
called the Flying Dutchman at one point, and they had a great ground, LKP, it was called Louis Kahn Plaza. And so, what in a similar in how actually Ultimate started in the world, it started off in colleges, right? And
Hmm.
Yeah.
it also started off in what is considered to be like the Ivy League of colleges, like the best of the best, supposedly. And so that's a similar story in India as well, where the IIMs have been playing. ISB has also been playing in Hyderabad. Again, like attributed to Manokaran being there and kind of kicking it off there. So he also has that legacy. But there are a lot of IIMs and IITs that are playing. So IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, IIT Bangalore, Kanpur, IIM Lucknow, and IIT Madras also. so they have their own like inter-college fests, and they play they play like that. Ashoka University in Delhi, North Delhi, started playing Stevens College in Delhi. Another one which we haven't mentioned but is kind of a community today is Coimbatore. That was actually started out of a college as well. Their team name was Discreed. Players like Anil George, Srijan Bhatt started out playing there. So today there are around 20 to 25 colleges, and BMS College being another one, which was like the Ticks in Bangalore. Their second team kind of came out of that college. But it's often happened that club teams have adopted colleges, and this is something that the college committee really hopes happens for the foreseeable future, where club teams, like the really good club teams, are looking to recruit players. And if we can start Ultimate in colleges first, where they're a younger age, they have a bit more free time, they usually have the grounds to go with it, and they can get some backing from their college, especially if there are events that are happening. So there is now the National College Ultimate Championship, which happens every year, and that's all the colleges that compete around the country. Of course, doesn't matter being another top college, which is it's a funny name, but yeah, based out of Bangalore, of the Jain International Residency School. There's, I think, three BITS campuses that play as well. So these are the more notable names, but now there are like more colleges coming up because they're inspired by these, famous so-called colleges that are playing. So they're like, we also want to play.
How big do you think our community is right now?
It's hard. It's like you were saying, it's kind of split in this kind of recreational play for just, time pass fun, using it as a fitness thing. And then the super competitive, like goes to all events, tournaments. So like the competitive community, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think it's around 1,500. But the actual membership is around 10,000, and a lot of that is boosted by Assam, like that huge community there, which is like half the community, 5,000 players. So it's around 10,000 right now.
Which is big. I mean, even though Assam, but like half, which is 5,000, also is quite big.
Yeah, and I think go on, Jaidip.
No, that's the size, and it is quite a lot, and then a lot of that is down to the UPI and their like efforts to grow the community, right? Like even though it was kickstarted in Assam by an individual, Anish Mukherjee, who had just traveled there, introduced it to the NGO, and then they decided to keep it going. The ANT, Action Northeast Trust. It's really like people like Manix, and now Mrinalini is there, like who continue to coach. Dan Rule has even visited that community too.
Yeah, actually, I want to tell you the story of Ant. I did some research on it. So, Anish, who was I think he was a Gandhi fellow. He went in 2015 to Ant. He was, I think he was a Gandhi fellow, and then he wanted to work in sports for development. That he had decided this. And he was looking around for opportunities, and he was talking to people, and he contacted the Ant, and they asked him to come. Jenny at the Ant said, come. And he'd had considerable social work experience before that, and he'd also been playing for that many years, 4 years, I think. And so he arrived there, and this is all happening without UPAI intervention, mind you. So he starts this whole community. Essentially, all teams over there, and this is something that is a big boast from the Assam region, is all teams consist of two genders, 3 religions, 3 villages, 3 castes, and 4 languages. And in the Assam community, it's especially relevant to mention that it's a big conflict region. There are strikes every week. You have shutdowns. Business as usual doesn't happen easily because of a lot of tensions between religions, villages, communities. And so this using Ultimate as a tool, especially in Assam, was working wonders in terms of conflict resolution. And that that now in 2018 Manix was informed that there is thousands of people in Assam who are playing Ultimate,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's so interesting to me that a community developed to that size, and then you know uh, that means it's also developed. It's again this individual driven effort that has gone and created this, um, thanks to the non-profits intervention and
yeah.
in Assam. And also it's completely like Anisha was self-taught through YouTube. Ultimate was
Yeah.
taught through YouTube. And this is something Manix also mentions. Like he wrote a blog about it, about how when he went finally, the way the Assamese community was playing Ultimate was, he he was torn between wanting to coach them how he would coach
Hmm.
like us,
Conventional.
correct, versus yeah, I shouldn't have said us conventionally, versus what developing on things they were already
Already
good
good
at,
at.
correct,
Yeah.
because that space is also huge in football. So a lot of what they were
Hmm.
bringing to Ultimate was football tactics, which was working for them, since that's
Yeah.
what they, yeah, yeah. So now I think apparently the ant has also now introduced a little bit of this in a workshop in Nagaland. So who knows, we
Yeah.
might, yeah.
Have another
Have more.
5,000.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
would be
And
awesome.
yeah, and just in terms of talking about how the different communities grow and what actually makes up and who makes up the growth. So apparently, so Surat to me is an interesting case in the West, where Surat community was one of the few communities that had coaches coming in right from the beginning to train kids. And Jumbish, hands down, like one of the best teams. They were they've had, I think, three titles back to back in NCS for being the best team, the top seeded team. And they would have, I guess, they would have been this the top seeded team if they had participated or not. I mean, they had a good shot in 2019 as well. But yeah, so they actually had Box and Nimisha go in 2015-16 to train teams to train kids and teams over there. They were paid coaches. Even now, Jashan from L2F and from Bangalore is over there for a year, 1 year program where he's a paid coach training kids. And so they're one of the few communities that actually invest a lot in terms of growing skilled and being very focused and mindful of the skills and the development of the players. um, Vardhan was saying apparently, these kids, they have so much time and they have so much facilities. Something similar to what Jaidip you said, like these colleges, they have players and they have space. Like these kids would like throw for 2 hours morning, evening, and that's
Yeah.
like a lot of time and effort, and that shows on the field and that shows
Yeah.
once they and also like I think also interestingly, like the West has a smaller pool of players in terms of total number of players,
Yeah.
but yet the quality and the talent that it creates does end up representing
Hmm.
at national levels. Even like, I mean, I think even Goa for that matter, they have one of the best female players and the representation of female players in national teams, right?
Yeah.
And 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 when I was talking to Mel about why that is so, that how come that there is this, I mean, Nash seems to be one of the teams which has a lesser difference in terms of the gender skills mismatch on the
Yeah.
team. So apparently they when they started out as a team, they actually had difficulty bringing in men to play. They actually had more women who were there to play, and that actually helped bridge the gender gap, because they were always there was never they would never have matchups on based of gender. They always had matchup based on person across. So they never kind of grew thinking, oh, we are only going to match up with boys, or only like we can only do these throws, or we will only get the disc and dump it or not pass it forward. And yeah, so I mean, yeah, just another thought that how Goa as a community has kind of tried to kind of make sure that the skills on both gender also kind of stays stays grows parallelly, and there is a lesser kind of this disadvantaged growth. I mean, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
Yeah.
like a, sort of less focus on women and more focus on men, kind of a thing. But yeah, and
Yeah.
also, one more interesting thing with Goa, which I found out, was that they actually have on every Saturdays. So this is when I say Goa, I mean to say, so there is Bits. They do have Bits, which has
Bits
a
go.
big program. Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
again, Bits has this problem with almost which every college faces, like IIC and IITB, IIT Bombay, that they have a very like a consistent moving roster of players, so
Yep.
they don't have a consistent
Graduating.
player base. Yeah, exactly. And they have a big problem on recruiting women players, so which is why they don't end up they having good players, or they don't end up having like equal matchups in mixed gender tournaments. Um, but yeah, so Goa actually Nash has every Saturday they have something called as a tournament day. So they practice like they're playing for a tournament. So they get into that mindset of being in a
Mm.
tournament, and like they literally have fights, apparently. Like, and I when I was there recently in Goa, I saw that myself. Like they fought, they were like really up in each other's faces. They also like stick to 30-second discussions, spirit, hand signals,
Mm.
etc., etc. So yeah, they're also quite focused on skills, and they try to do that by having like these tournament days. And apparently, like if you lose, you have to put on lipsticks and like play the next day. Like they also have fun. But yeah.
Nice. I think we I think we wanted to add a few mentions here of some communities still, right? Meher, you had one?
Yeah, I mean, I think undeniably Lucknow is completely made from Project Khel.
Yeah.
I think massive job done there. I mean, I mean, the diske khwabs, the urta kebabs, the flying nawabs, and Awadh
Awad
Khiladi.
Khiladi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think Akshay and his team have done such a fabulous job in creating that entire community over there. And
Yeah.
just how much you put a child on the field, and how many social emotional things can be addressed. And
Mm.
so the non-profit culture, like all over India, like some of the communities Richa mentioned and I spoke about, Jaidip spoke about, how much the non-profit scene is doing for Ultimate in
Yeah.
India, and
Yeah.
the growth of people and Ultimate because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I talk about that all the time with people like globally outside of India, that India has this unique kind of ecosystem where we have a lot of non-profits and NGOs who are interacting and using Ultimate as a tool for social change in their programs. And this has actually led to our young player base being very strong and
Yeah,
experienced. So we can
yeah,
put up like good performances in events like the U20s in Poland. And
yeah,
you see that in the makeup of the mixed team. It's
Yeah.
quite a lot of them are under the age of 24 still.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's impressive.
And also talk Yeah, and also talking about like non-profits, another new thing which UPI is doing is the PUL, the People's Ultimate League, with
Yeah.
with the new with the different gender, the underrepresented gender underrepresented groups. So I think that will be another really interesting
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
addition to our community, where we see people from other genders participating in the sport. And I'm
Yeah.
excited to see how that will also impact the growth of the sport going forward.
And we still have a couple more mentions. One is Patliputra Ultimate, based out of Bihar. This was a community or team that came out of the ashes of FDFI, the Flying Disc Federation of India, after they lost their membership to us with the WFDF. And they've been to a couple of our tournaments and still active, I believe. And one more community we haven't talked too much about, which is the Hyderabad community. The founding teams there were mostly a team called Dishkia and the ISB team, which we already talked about. which also now, since they opened a campus in Mohali, Punjab, they also have a team there. But they started out as a very one of the founding teams, and Discotech, which is a team based out of the Microsoft office campus. So they have really nice grounds, and they started playing. So that's yeah, and Dishkia was a lot of those founding people. I think one Raju PN, who was later an advisory board member, was one of those founding people for Dishkia, which later on split to make High Flyers and Dishkia as two separate teams. And later on, Goosebumps came along, thanks to Binoy Stevens, who was a TFI fellow based out of Hyderabad. And I think Goosebumps still plays today. So they're active in Hyderabad as well.
Yeah, and Hyderabad also had a team at Microsoft, right?
Yeah, that's Discotech. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's now that you spoke about, I think that might be the next thing, like corporate teams, because I remember someone
Yeah,
speaking about
I
like
was just going to say that.
Amex
Yeah,
wanting to make Shishir, and Aman and Niharika were wanting to make a
Yeah,
Amex
Amex,
team,
yeah.
and
There was an
yeah.
Amex team. It was like Old Monk or something it was called.
Oh, sounds
It
drunken.
played in one of the Ashoka Ultimate Championships. But yeah, like a Google, Amex, Deloitte, all these MNCs, typically
yeah,
Ooh,
they have
yeah.
bands to do
the
this.
next gen of Ultimate. We've done schools, we've done colleges, we've done expats.
By the way, in Bombay, Bizongo, so Aniket and Vinny, they set up, they actually LinkedIn, there was a game, LinkedIn versus the Bizongo team. So there
Right.
was like a proper team, and in fact, Bizongo made their own jerseys for the team. And yeah, so it was, they tried to set up a corporate team, and they still do like throws and practice, but again, it's like fun, recreational, not fully competitive yet. Yeah, and in fact, in Bombay, it's been an interesting growth where it started out for the very longest time. It was mainly Storm, and Storm has been one of the top teams in India as well. And only very recently, in the last 3-4 years, is when we have like now 4 teams. So we have Down to Earth, IIT Nightcallers, West Coast Rascals, and the most recent and the youngest and only young people is Kalina Thunders.
Oh yeah.
It's yeah, it's again a team born out of Sports for Development, and has really young and very fast up, players. And yeah, so Bombay has seen an interesting growth through now a very organized recruitment process. Earlier didn't have it because it was mainly friends playing it as a side hustle, or just couldn't put in so much energy into recruitment, and which is why I think it's taken a lot of time to grow the sport here in Bombay. Now it's like such a constant feature and phenomenon on Juhu Beach. Like almost half the beach we take on Saturday, Sundays, and people are just like walking through the field and like, okay, this is now
Excellent.
just part. Yeah, exactly. And now, in fact, they wonder if we don't go for practice. They're like, oh, where are these Frisbee
Where are they?
people? Yeah, which is like, wow, it's
All the
just nice.
vendors.
Yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, Bombay has also had a nice, interesting growth trajectory in the last few years, and there's also a very thriving recreational scene similar to Delhi, with minis being played recreationally.
Yeah. I think essentially like the community is so diverse. There's so much going on. They've been born out of such different circumstances. I think age is also a factor. We have really young people in the 8 to 10s, and then we have 40-year-olds. And that's just really amazing about the sport, that is also able to add so much variety. Then there is the competitive and the non-competitive, and essentially like it's really interesting to think about all the different kinds of people who are coming in to make the Indian ultimate community.
Absolutely, yes, very well said. And with that, I want to give out like shout out to 3 people who. So in the recent post that we have made for asking for episode suggestions, so Nandan from Blitz, Rishi from Ashoka and Sahil from West Coast Rascals. All three of them had really great suggestions, and we're going to take them on. Thank you for sending in your suggestions, and we're going to work towards making your episode ideas true and live, hopefully in the next coming few episodes. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Yeah, and I hope we covered all of our communities. If we didn't, do let us know. Drop an email or contact one of us. Email contact@91ultimate.com or message Mehr, myself, or Richa. We'd love to hear about any new teams, new communities, or prospective places as well. With that, we'll say goodbye for now. So goodbye from me.
Yes, thank you everyone for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.